Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's College Essay Pro Chat. Boy, we have a lot of interest in this topic. We are talking about AI and college essays. I feel like I could do this session once a week and I would still get a big audience because everybody's talking about it, everybody's curious about it. We have done several Pro Chats over the years on this topic. Some of our thinking has evolved, some of it has not changed. And so today I'm going to go through your questions. If I don't answer your question, feel free to send it to me by email, susan@wowwritingworkshop.com. Let's get into it. Amy says, how can AI help students without hurting them? It's a good question. So I'm not sure that it's necessary for us to think about how it can help them. It's not that I don't like this question, but I want to reframe it. I want to ask you, what problem are you trying to solve that AI can help you with? So I want to make sure that we're not looking at a solution in search of a problem. And by that, I mean everybody wants to use AI for everything. Okay, let me tell you about my experience. My Gmail had an AI component. It kept correcting my sentences. Okay, it's not terrible, but became kind of intrusive. And I thought, what is going on? Why does it keep recommending changes to my sentences? These are emails, they're casual messages. I'm a professional writer. What is going on? So I started paying attention to it. I didn't have a problem. I had a solution, but I didn't have a problem. So I actually turned that feature off after a few weeks. I thought, this is driving me nuts. It was trying to polish my writing. I don't have a problem with my writing. Most people don't when it comes to basic emails. It's okay if I have sentence fragments. It's okay if I use a comma incorrectly. It's not the end of the world. But what was happening was the standard for this tool was up here, was this kind of writing, whatever that meant. And it wasn't that it was wrong, but it was unnecessary. It was solving a problem that I didn't have. So keep that in mind. If you're a student, and this is going to be changing, I think we're going to see rapid change between this season and next, because I've already seen it since last season to this one. So if you're a student and your Gmail is constantly correcting your sentences and everything you do has an auto, sentence finisher and is correcting your punctuation at every turn, you're going to start assuming that that is correct, and that becomes normative. This is what I think the real issue is here. So students are going to start thinking that AI can make their writing better somehow because it is built into things that they didn't even ask for. And it will become a normal thing. We need to understand that more than I think we need to worry about whether we need to police their essays for AI. So I'm really glad that Amy asked this. How can AI help students without hurting them? I think we need to pay attention to how they're using it already, what they're expecting, what they already understand, and how they see it as a tool in their lives, because it's going to become ubiquitous and we're going to need to understand that. Next question. Kathy says, how to find the balance with AI? Can it be used as a tool to jumpstart the writing or brainstorming process ethically for reluctant writers? How then can we ensure they won't use it to write the essay entirely? Do we need to check all essays for AI, or should we be making a statement at the start that while we won't check, many colleges will? In other words, are we the first level of AI police? Kathy, thank you for asking that. Okay, we are not the AI police. I am going to hereby make you not the AI police. It is not your job. It is not our job. It is not my job to protect students from misuse of tools they shouldn't use. We can inform them, we can educate them, we can work with them, we can be curious about what they're doing. We are adding a question to our intake questionnaire this year for students that says, do you use AI in school? It's not a judgment, I'm just curious. And if so, how? I want to know. I think we're going to see a huge range of use cases for students. And so we can't assume that they're all using, I mean, there's, studies say X% of students. Okay, But is it every single one that I'm working with? I want to know individually what my students are doing. And I want to be able to have a realistic conversation. Another question in my intake questionnaire is, do you like to read? Do you like to write? I want to know where they start. And then that will help me guide them more effectively. So let's take Kathy's question apart. Can it be used as a tool to jumpstart the writing and brainstorming process for reluctant writers? Okay. For those of you who have gone through our college essay experience training, this will make a lot of sense. For those of you who have not, I encourage you to do it. Sign up today. This is not a sales pitch. But I do want to tell you that one of the things we do first, the very first step in the WOW process, is to make sure students understand the prompt. Now, we've actually updated the names of some of our steps this year. So we are showing them off as we go through the beginning of the season. We have changed that to understand the prompt and purpose. Why? Because we've always helped students understand the prompt and the purpose in step one. But I want you to make sure, before you assume that reluctant writers won't be able to brainstorm, do students understand the prompt? AI can't help you with that. So what are the three questions we ask? After we have a whole lesson, they watch a video, they read a web page, they do a writing task. The writing task has three questions. Remember, we're educators. I'm checking for understanding. So I want to address the potential that I have a reluctant writer or a confident writer or a writer who really knows what they're doing or a writer who has no idea what they're doing. I want to address that early. I don't want it to show up as a problem later. So first I need to make sure every single student can confirm that they understand the prompt. This is related to AI. I will get there. So the first three questions, one, we start with the Common App. It's our teaching essay. What's the prompt? Why are you writing this, basically? What is the purpose of the Common App personal statement? If they say it's to show how unique I am or to make me stand out, I know that they didn't watch my video, they didn't read my webpage, and they didn't read the instructions, but that's good information for me. I'm an educator, I'm paying attention. The right answer, because I've given it to them over and over and over, is they want to find out what can they learn about me beyond my grades and scores and all of the quantitative data. That's the answer. I want to make sure they understand it. Next question, what do they already know about you? That's accomplishments. They know I got this grade, this score on my ACT. They know I took this many AP courses. They know I have a job after school because that's in the application, right? It's in your transcript, it's in your activities, it's in the letters of recommendation, a lot of that kind of information. They have a lot about what you've done, but what they don't know is who you are. So the next question, the third question, is what else would you like them to know? What are some of your positive traits? I don't need to give them 100 questions about their positive traits. I just want to know that they understand what a positive trait is. Do they get it? Do they know the difference between accomplishments and characteristics? Can they tell the difference between characteristics and accomplishments? If they can do that, my next task, my brainstorming, is not me sitting in a room just talking to them. What do you want to write about? What are three ideas? Give me a million stories. No. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm having them think about, they have to have four ideas they bring to their brainstorm discussion, and each one has to have four elements. One, which prompt are you responding to? Which of the six Common App options? Two, what's one anchor story that something that happened relatively recently, within the last year or two, that answers this question and demonstrates one of these positive characteristics, either one that you've already told me or some other one. I don't care if they start with the prompt, the characteristic, or the story. They need all three in balance in order to move forward. And that doesn't mean the whole essay is going to be focused on the anchor story. Again, I'm teaching. It's not about finding the perfect topic. It's about understanding what makes an effective topic. So, getting to Kathy's question about the reluctant writer. If I have a reluctant writer, I say, give me terrible ideas. Give me your worst. I want to make sure you have a prompt, a characteristic, and a story. And if you have those three things, I can help you work with it. We can have a conversation. All AI can do, as far as topics goes, is it can ask a million questions. It can ask more questions more quickly than I can. It can gather information and spit out ideas. I've tested these tools. I've done it. I've played with it. the ones that are purpose built for college essays, they ask you a bunch of questions. What are some meaningful experiences you've had? What's the hardest thing you've done? Where do you like to hang out? Just questions. They're just questions. They don't make sure you understand the prompt. They don't tell you why you might want to talk about those things. They're just questions. They're like, so when I started doing training for my colleagues, all of you, that was what I was battling against. And I feel like I still am, is teaching people not to do that. Teaching people, I've now taught many, many hundreds of them. We're going to reach 700 trainees going through college essay experience this year, which is pretty cool. Teaching people to help students understand the prompt so they know what makes an effective topic. So for the reluctant writer, now I'm getting back to it, I can say to the student, you said that you're a good problem solver. What's a problem you solved? I don't know. Anything. Anything. And finally, I can get something from them almost all of the time. So AI can't do that. It really can't. And all it can, I mean, if you have a reluctant writer, you might say, all right, I'm going to write a prompt for you that says, you told me that you have these kinds of characteristics. What are some stories you can tell that illustrate them? So an AI could ask that instead of a person. That's not really, that doesn't help anybody. So I know that was a really long answer, but it goes to why I think that there are times when we want AI to solve our problems. That's not a problem that AI can solve. Better training, more confidence in the counselor, that's the solution to that problem, is knowing that every student has a story. And the reluctant writer needs our encouragement that their normal, regular, day-to-day experiences are really great and are just as good as any that sound fancier. So I appreciate your patience as I answered that question. The other question was, do we need to check for AI or should we be making a statement? We're noticing it a little bit. We're noticing we had a student last year, here's a good example, who, because our process, and someone had asked about this, that the WOW method slows you down. So are there tells that students are using AI? Yes, there are. If you do step one and you have them make sure they understand the prompt, then you do step two and they brainstorm ideas, then you do step three and they focus on theme. You have a lot of samples of their writing by this point. Then they do step four, they free write just for content, just about the what happened part of their theme. Then they write a first draft. So we have a student who did all this, very conscientious, met her deadlines, had a great brainstorm appointment with her coach, all is well. She writes her first draft. It's fine. It's good. It's a lovely first draft. It's not perfect yet. It's just a content draft. And then her coach takes her through step six. Step six is writing exercises that focus exclusively on content. Exclusively on content. We're not worried about the structure and polish of the essay because I'm going to talk about AI tools that do that kind of thing as well in a minute. He gives her these exercises. She does the exercises. They're not hard. She doesn't need AI to do them for her. They're easy tasks and they take a few minutes. Then she does step seven. In step seven, she revises and writes a new draft. This is a content plus structure draft. And the coach gets her work and he looks at it and he asks the question that he would ask even if there was no such thing as AI college essay help. Who helped you with this? Again, no judgment, just curious because it doesn't sound like her other writing. He has samples of her other writing that were very easy for her to develop. So he knows what she sounds like. Even if she had had AI help her with the first draft, he still has earlier examples of her writing. So he knows what she sounds like. He's not accusing her. He's curious, right? And she says, oh, I wrote my draft and then I put it into, I don't know, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever she did. And I said, make this better. And he said, let's look at this is the teaching moment, right? The tell was it sounded different. It wasn't the same writing style. When we do our warm up, our morning writing, part of the reason we do that is I want to see what these kids sound like when they're not trying so hard. I want to know what they just naturally sound like. What is their writing voice like? Because I can recognize, even though an essay is going to be more polished, I can recognize the difference. You can recognize the difference. So he looks at her draft that she wrote, and then he looks at the draft that she turned in that she'd gotten some help with. And he showed her how it was different, but it wasn't better. And in fact, it had become too polished. Now you could say, well, you could say only make changes that would be, appropriate for a 17-year-old applying to college. I mean, you could do a lot of stuff, spending a lot of time getting the AI to give you the exact right kind of help. And I would say, well, use that time to improve the essay, right? But what he did was he was able to show her without accusing her, without making her feel bad, that all she had was something different. This goes back to my Gmail example. The email that Gmail improved was different. It wasn't better, and it didn't sound like me anymore. It sounded like some generic version. Now you could say, well, if you had enough examples, eventually it would sound like you. I guess it could. But at this point, it wasn't helping. It didn't matter. It didn't make it better. This is the student and my Gmail. It made it different. And because the student assumed that the machine must be smarter than the average human, she assumed that that different was better. And he very gently and very respectfully showed her that it wasn't better, it was only different. And that she had written a perfectly strong and effective second draft, and that together they were going to make it better. So they did. That was the lesson. So next question. Diana says, do you review further essays after you've confirmed that a draft has used AI? Yeah, I mean, if a student is trying to cheat, I'm not going to continue working with them. But if they've used AI and I tell them not to, yeah, we'll move on. We didn't see a ton of it last year. We're going to see more of it this year, which is why I want to know how they're using it in school. I may change my mind. By next year, I might say, you know what? It's too late. They're using it. Here's how we're going to use it. This is why I say that our thinking is evolving. What I'm trying, like I said before, though, I want to make sure I understand what problem am I trying to solve. If my problem is my students are reluctant about writing, I want to make them more comfortable. If my problem is that my student is not willing to put the effort in, I'm going to meet them where they are and let them do the work that they're willing and able to do. Pushing a little bit, but not, pushing them over a cliff. If the problem is that I'm not a confident brainstormer, well, I want to work on my skills so that I can feel more confident. That may sound old-fashioned, but I really believe that we have to be careful not to let AI become a crutch for things that we could be more skilled at. Let's see. Next question. Um, let's see. I want to talk about essay reviews a little bit because I think that's important. Okay. Stephanie says, what are the best practical and ethical ways to use AI in the essay review process to help me be more efficient and provide clear and actionable feedback and coaching? So again, problem, I want to be a better reviewer. My solution, divide your reviews into content, followed by structure, followed by polish. And when you're done commenting on content, don't comment on it anymore. And don't comment on polish earlier than you should. So what do I mean by that? If a student writes a first draft, we consider that a content draft. They have a theme for their essay. They know what they're going to write about and why. When I review that first draft, this is step 6 of our process. In step 6, we do 2 exercises. One, we have them write outside the essay. What do they write about? We look at the theme. What are they going to write about and why? We look at the first draft and we say, what did you already include? And then we look at, do I need more? What happened? Do I need more? Why does it matter? In our brainstorm, did you give me more context that I'd like you to write more about? And I say, I'd like you to set a timer, for this many minutes, and I want you to write about this. Just free write. Now they've already done 2 free writing activities. They know how to do that. They did it in their warm up and they did it in their step 4 free write when they're just writing about content. I'm using my steps as an example, whether you use them or not, because what I'm saying is the solution is in thinking about what you've done before that's going to set the student up for success at that point. And if you're not that skillful at finding those spots for content development, then call me and we can train you more and teach you how to do it because it's not that hard. There's no magic answer. There's no magic AI. Now you could create a question for an AI bot and say, I am a WOW trained coach and I am on step 6 and I would like feedback on content for the writing outside the essay exercise. Here is everything the student has done before and what prompts they responded to. And here is, I mean, you could do that. You could construct that prompt and you could practice with it and you could test it and you could use it and refine it and refine it. But you can't do that if you don't already know what makes good step 6 feedback, right? You can't evaluate what you're getting from the AI unless you already know what a good answer looks like. This is what's happening with coding right now, right? Um, I was just listening to something about this the other day. They're saying that it's great. Coding can go a lot faster now with AI. However, the coder, the person who's asking for the code, needs to know what they're looking at. Even if they build in checks and checks and checks and checks, it can speed their work up. But in order to get to that point, they need to know what they're looking at and what would be correct. They need to know that it was checked properly. So what I'm saying is, unless you're working with 500 students, this is not that hard. It's not something you can't do. Now you might say, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Okay, that's reasonable. But I do th so then we get to structure. We say, okay, let's have the AI give us structure comments. These are examples of step 8 comments for us. These are the kinds of comments I give. We give comments, we make observations, we ask questions, but I make those observations and ask those questions based on what I've learned about the student's willingness and ability to do the work up till now. So again, those of you who've done college essay experience, you look at your resource packet or those who are in our partners program, you can find all of this on your partners platform, on your partners dashboard. We have examples of step 8 comments, comments that I gave to different kinds of students, that we gave to different kinds of students. This student, very, very sensitive, needed a lot of positive reinforcement. So you'll notice the comments help frame it so that she won't get nervous and ignore everything that comes beyond. Another student can dig deeper, is has the capacity to really go deep. The essay is not an object that exists separate from the student who writes it. Your feedback has to reflect what that student is willing and able to handle. So I'm not saying that an AI cannot perhaps eventually help with this. I don't think we're there yet. I have tested it. So I took an essay written by a student who has since graduated from college with great success, did very, very well at a prestigious university. I took the essay, I put it into a very respected AI tool, a couple of them, different ones, to see what I'd get. And in both cases, the feedback, a lot of it actually was quite useful. However, two problems. One, it was way too much. It was content plus structure plus polish all mixed up together. It was so much stuff. If I were a student, I would look at this and say, never mind, throw it up in the air and just take the one I already had. In fact, I used to give feedback like that. That's part of how we learned to give content, then structure, then polish feedback is I used to write these huge, long reviews for students, and they ignored them because it was too much information. I needed to think like an educator, which I am. I needed to think, how do students learn? How do people learn? How much can they take in at once? And I had to break it down. So these AI feedback tools, one of them gave what I'd consider step 8 feedback, but it assumed certain things. It talked about certain types of characteristics. My student was not illustrating those characteristics intentionally. That was not what he chose. The other one gave so much feedback. It also asked for it, said, a moment of conflict can be helpful in telling a good story. Can you tell about a moment of conflict during this experience? There was no moment of conflict. That was not the kind of story it was. And if there had been a moment of conflict, it wouldn't have been a better story. So if a student receives feedback like that, they're either going to invent something or think that their topic isn't good and they're going to throw it away and try again. I don't want to do that to my students. So you'll think that I'm talking against AI. I'm not. I think there's potential. I don't think we're there yet. And I think for those of my colleagues who are using it effectively, It's because they already understand how to do the thing they're teaching the machine to do. Okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just don't think it improves anything. I don't think it improves our work life. I don't think it improves our students' experience. I think right now there's a lot of experimentation going on. Look, I would love to build a tool that could be a thought partner for a WOW trained coach. I think that would be really valuable. I would be interested in building something that could be like a WOW coach for a student. But the kinds of things that we do with our students are challenging to teach a machine to do. It can be done. Maybe we'll do it one day. Stay tuned. But I'm saying that the things that are out there right now can either tell you what to write or over edit your essay or give you feedback that's going to be overwhelming. It's what I've seen. And you need to think about how they're built. You need to think about what the inputs and outputs are. So I've talked to several folks who've built these AI tools, and I've asked them, how'd you build them? And I'm not looking for your trade secrets. I'm just curious, what are the inputs? What are the inputs? Completed essays. Completed essays matched to the school that the student got into. And you might think, well, great. That's amazing. That's terrific. My student wants to go to that school. Let's model their essays after that. You know, and I know that that's not how admissions work. Essays don't just jump over walls by themselves. Essays are part of applications. They are connected to the students who wrote them. And that remains true, whether students are using AI in school or not. And we have to remember that again, essay coaching can be challenging. That is true. If you haven't done our training, I encourage you to do it. You'll have a much better season. You'll be a much more confident coach. You will save time. And but we can be better at it and we can be more confident about it. Oh, Beth put a question in the chat. What do you think of students using Grammarly, technically considered AI, when comparing a student's revised draft to his original one? I gave him feedback that the revised draft didn't sound like his voice and wondered about AI. He said that he used Grammarly. So this is such a good question. Grammarly has positioned itself now as a writing AI tool. Grammar is in its name. That is not what they do anymore. You can go into the Grammarly settings. I was just doing this the other day. I don't use Grammarly, but I was thinking, could I use this as a proofreading tool? The answer is no, because even at its most bare bones, it does too much, more than I want. But I was curious, so that's a good question. Thanks for asking, Beth. Grammarly that we know of from, years ago up till the present has been a grammar, your punctuation is off, you've started your sentence with a preposition, things that you can gauge whether they matter or not, but that's not the issue. It has become a writing assistant. It is giving feedback that is not grammar, that is not usage, that's not about clarity, that is actually revision. Students don't know that, especially students right now who may have been using Grammarly since they were 10 because it checked their grammar just like spell check. So this is where we have those gray lines. How are they using it? How are they already using it? What I'm trying to do here is help students see that writing is something they can do. I mean, part of the issue, and we can't solve it with college essay coaching, but we can address it. And the students don't always feel confident as writers. And now that they have these other tools, they feel like they can use them instead of learning the skill. There may come a day when that is true, when people like me are dinosaurs. It's possible. But I do think that there is benefit, especially right now, especially this generation of students right now. In 5 years, this might not be true. They've been playing with AI for a few years since they were in middle school while these tools were being developed. They're not, the tools aren't mature and the students aren't mature. They're playing, they're curious. So let's play. Let's be curious with them. Let's see what they can and can't do. And let's notice when the writing seems like it didn't come from the student and help the student understand when and if that matters. One last question. Pamela says, I have heard consultants use it to form better questions for brainstorming sessions. I am just curious to see if this is a common practice. I have heard that as well. And I see that as a reflection of the same question I often get, which is, I need better brainstorming questions. And I say, no, 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 you need better listening skills. They say, well, my students have nothing to say. I need to ask them better questions. And I say, our questions are very simple, very, very simple. And the best question is not a question, it's a statement. Tell me about a time when, if in our step one, you identify that you have a certain positive characteristic, I'm a hard worker. How more cliche can you get? Tell me about a time when you worked really hard on something. Why? Not because illustrating that you're a hard worker is suddenly going to take you to the top of the list trying to get into a competitive school, but because in telling that story, they will illustrate other characteristics as well. Go back and look at your best essays, and you will see that whatever characteristic they started with, other things become apparent in the writing. They can't help it. So we can think like teachers, like coaches. The students don't need the best, most polished essay. AI, yeah. Research, sure. We didn't even talk about that. You want to research why they should go to this school? It's a great thought partner for that. However, I tell my students still check your work. That the information that the tool brings back to you could be old. It could be really old. It could be out of date. It could be inaccurate. So just as you wouldn't trust your cousin who went to Dartmouth 10 years ago to tell you everything about the school and check your information, check any information you get from AI. Make sure that it's accurate. So I've answered a lot of questions. There's probably more. I encourage you to send them to me, Susan at wowwritingworkshop.com. Love that you've been here today. We're going to take a little break from ProChats in May. We're going to have a new format and some new offerings. So stay tuned, watch your email, watch our messages, and send me your questions, send me your suggestions. What are you curious about? What do you want me to talk about? I want to know. Have a great day.